Hailie Deegan has finally put herself in the positive spotlight for the second time in 2023, and after being backlashed for her driving skills and poor results, the Thor Sport racing driver managed to shut some mouths with her latest performance in Talladega. Although it's a bit late in the season and people tend to underestimate these results, Deegan has proven one thing certain that her fans love to see. She still got it for the sport, and she hasn't lost the motivation and passion after the rough patch she's been through. But what does this mean for her future in NASCAR, and was this the race that could propel her to the Xfinity Series? Hailie Deegan managed to score P8 in Talladega, resulting in only the second top 10 finish of her season so far, and even though it may not mean much to the fans of the sport, due to the fact that this was heavily expected of her to do since the very beginning of the season, we must not forget one very important fact. Deegan has had a rough slump in her performance. Yes, she was mostly at fault, but being the minority in the sport and being the only female who races can definitely take the toll on your performing acts, which is something that Deegan tried to reclaim after a couple of good races in the SRX Series that are courtesy of Tony Stewart. Many NASCAR experts believe that her good races in the SRX Series were an indicator that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't made for the Truck Series, and she should go out there to try her luck in another category, with the Xfinity Series being her priority. But considering how difficult it is to enter these series, as well as the sponsorship issue that Deegan has openly discussed, something we'll cover later in this video, there is a creeping doubt surrounding her future in this particular category. This might mean bad news for her foreseeable future, mostly because the Truck Series can offer you only so much, and even though she started to reclaim her glory after having a new crew chief and a slump performance that lasted more or less throughout the entire season, the first step has been made in Talladega, and that was all she was hoping about before entering the race. Elaborating on her latest success, Deegan went on to say, "Overall, we had a plan going into this race and executed perfectly to what we wanted to do. When we look at last year, how I did here, I know I went with the same plan. I hung back all race and was able to be there at the end. So I was like, man, I haven't had good luck in the super speedways my whole truck career. So that worked out for me one time. So I was like, let's just try to do it again. Overall, we executed it perfectly, and we did what we needed to do." Speak whatever you want about Deegan and her underperformance, but lately, fate hasn't been very kind to her. She saw her crew chief being replaced by her teammate, and him elaborating about her weaknesses to Rhodes, the new driver that Luscious has taken command of the crew of. It was a clear sign that even Thor Sport doesn't really trust her that much after citing her at the beginning of the year. But now, with just 2 races left in the season, it's all to play for Deegan. She is proving everyone that even though there are certain obstacles in life that can definitely interfere with your confidence, such as the rest of the Truck Series drivers blasting you for your inability to drive the truck as well as calling you talentless, there's always room for improvement, and the last thing that you want to do is just fall victim to these harsh comments. While it did seem like Deegan has started to spiral out of control of her racing career, especially after the last couple of crashes and incidents she has been involved in, the latest race in Talladega, which is a super speedway by the way, and it's not that easy to do a good job there, went on to show that Deegan is not done, and she is eyeing a move to another series as a proof that nothing can stop her from achieving what she believes is rightfully hers. But while many thought that she couldn't make it with her new crew chief, Brian Ross, after considering him to be a downgrade compared to what Luscious was in terms of experience and knowledge of her team, Deegan has harshly defended her new team boss and went on to say, "I got a new crew chief that I'm working with, and we're still trying to figure each other out. Still trying to figure out what works for both of us, and I think this will definitely give us some new momentum. I think this track is such an oddball, so I don't know if it affects every single other one. I think this will definitely give us some good momentum together, but then we are going to Homestead. Homestead wasn't good to me last year, so we're trying something different to see if it works." But it is evident that many of the fans want to see what Deegan is planning for her future, and while her answer as to whether or not she has thought about remaining in the Truck Series for an additional season or pursuing a spot in the Xfinity Series has been answered with "not yet," that doesn't really give us quite the direction we were hoping regarding how her future would turn out to be. As of now, it's evident that Deegan is only looking at the positives from the Talladega race, which was hard to do considering that her teammate Matt Crafton found himself in a violent fight after the race. But there is one factor that proves just how capable she is of doing what she can do more often in the future, providing internal knowledge to her crew chief and guiding him to joint success. talking about who was the hardest one to pursue for the result she had, as well as the short-term goals that she had for the race. Deegan couldn't help but praise her crew chief as she continued. "My crew chief, I had to make him a believer of it, and we were about 30 to 35 to go, and he's like, okay, should we start going here? And I'm like, it's too early, not yet. So we didn't end up going. We came downstairs, but I said tires on, put some fuel in it, let's give it 2 more laps of us after we go green. Let's see how it plays out. There's a caution right away, and I was like, I told you guys, it's not time yet. Why are we talking about this scenario this late in the video? It's obvious that feedback from the driver is the key essence of whether you can be a solid driver or a bust in NASCAR, and with the latest move of Deegan, she has proven to not only the world, but her team as well, that there is still a lot of unlocked potential in her driving abilities, and in order for her to continue this positive streak, she needs to be guided properly, and she needs to have her voice heard. But as we all know, this is not the final destination for Deegan, as she is more or less looking forward to landing an Xfinity Series seat, a scenario that seems to be a bit impossible at this moment right now. One of the key factors that Deegan has labeled is the sponsorship money, something that she doesn't really have on her side right now, at least not before the Talladega race, which is why the last 2 races need to be extremely good for her in order to make a case to some of the companies that might be interested in backing her voyage in the more competitive racing category. Speaking about her future, Deegan was asked whether or not she had planned to move for 2024, to which she replied, "Not yet. Still working on some stuff. Still trying to figure out what the best option is. Hopefully we'll see soon. I mean, I would hope soon. It's just that it's all on the financial side, and I would love to go to Xfinity, absolutely love to. I'd love to run there full-time next year, but it's just the financial side of it, and you go from these truck racing budgets of having to raise enough sponsorship money for that, and then you go to Xfinity, which is about double, if not more, if you want to run. As I already mentioned earlier in this video, the sole goal of Hailie would be to prove to the world in the last 2 races, or potentially in the upcoming season as well, that there is nothing that would stop her from achieving the success at a certain point in her career. Still, at this point, it's a bit of a far-fetched scenario, and more likely than not, Deegan will continue in the Truck Series for quite some time until she brushes off all the dirt that has been piling up on her in the past couple of years and tries to make a solid run for the championship in this category before she's even considered a real threat and a candidate for the Xfinity Series. So, what do you think about Hailie Deegan's latest performance? Do you think it's enough for us to conclude that she might be the driver we believed a couple of years ago? Let us know in the comments below.